Because this is such an important part of what you're studying in this course, I'm going to take a little time to talk to you about principles and elements of design. All right, I'm kind of centered up here. I don't know if you can see it or not on the principle part, but I'm going to go back over to elements. And while I'm doing that, let me explain to you why this is so important. This whole class, this whole course is going to be about your understanding these things. Now, when you go to the web page, on your course site, you have these wonderful links right here from going right over here. You see that's the one, Elements of Art. And they give you some information. And they also have some, if you go to Readings and Assignments over here, you'll bring up another link. And this has information as well. Okay, this is good. This is all very helpful. I'm not saying that that isn't a good thing to know. What I am here to tell you about is I don't think it does a very good job. Um, Okay, so what I'm going to do is post this list. These are the elements and principles I am going to be looking for in your work. Now, if you're getting kind of panicked and saying, I didn't know we were going to make art, you're not. You're going to look at art, you're going to tell me about it, and you're going to understand these things by gosh, okay? These are the things that you must understand in this course. And then, of secondary, but certainly very important importance, is you must know how to use them and describe them in a fashion that makes it very understandable. All right, now it is not, I repeat, it is not enough to look at a piece and say, the elements are good, the line is good, the color is good, I see saturation, hue, and value. That doesn't tell me anything. I want to know, what about the saturation? Well, obviously you can't tell me that if you don't, if you don't read about it, right? So you have to. So I'm trying to help you. Going to these areas is certainly one of the ways, and going to the readings and assignment is one of the ways you're going to learn about them, but I don't think it's enough. So I'm trying to help you by giving you this list. I'll post this in the announcements. You can pull it up and print it out. When you talk about elements, tick off every one of these. Don't just say the elements are good and I'm going to tell you about color, the saturation is really good. Not sufficient, all right? Tell me about each one. Tell me about line. If you have nothing to say about it, say I have nothing to say about the line. Can't talk about this. Either I don't see it or I don't understand it. If you don't understand it, I'm coming after you. Okay? But I do very much want you to understand this whole course. It's not like, oh, well, I can kind of get it this week and then it's okay. It's not okay. You're going to work on it this week, right. You're not going to have the best understanding the first week. Second week, you're going to work on it again. Third week, you're going to work on it again. Fourth week, you're still going to work on it. And as you work on it, you're going to be explaining, and I'm going to insist that you get better at explaining every time you do an assignment. But these are the terms, if you can tattoo them on the inside of your eyes, do so, because these are the terms you're going to go over and over and over with. Now, I'm going to take a little more of your time and try to tell you what I mean by all this. In fact, I have a thing I set up a long time ago, a PowerPoint presentation that I put into a PDF, and I'll post this also, and it might help you a lot. All right, here I'm looking at principles. There are lots of pages, so it may take a while to download. Let me go back a bit to elements, since that's what we're looking at. And I've given you examples on all of these, and sometimes there's a little discussion on them, but they're just examples to look at, all right? And hopefully they'll help you understand a little bit more as we go through this, all right? Now, I'm getting all the way back to line here. And if you'll look at this list right here, when you talk about line, what I want you to understand is, and talk to me about, is the quality of the line, the direction of the line, and the kind of line that it is, all right? Here we go. We're looking at a picture of a drawing that Da Vinci did. When we talk about quality of line, what I'm talking about is the thickness, the heaviness in here as he uses line to give you a sense of depth. Oh gosh, I didn't mean to do that. As he uses line to give you a sense of depth, that's an important thing. But I'm also trying to get you to see that he uses line to suggest just the curve, maybe of a curl, or the gesture of an arm, the way that movement is put in there. So the delicacy of the line, the thickness or the thinness, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the quality. Direction, very important. Let's see if I can pull up an image on direction. Not sure that, yeah, here we go. Uh, what you find when you look at lines is, first of all, diagonal lines suggest movement. You see these dancers are just caught in space, but you have a strong sense of the action in that particular thing because of these diagonal lines of the bodies and how they work, all right? Now, if I went to the next one, this is going to show you diagonal lines again. This is a Baccioni, and he is linked, and it's a great image and a wonderful sculpture form that you'll talk about. And if you think for a minute, this is the diagonal, the direction of the lines in that sculpture. What had they been not diagonal at all? What had they been just vertical and horizontal? You don't get that same sense of force, do you? That same movement. So by all means, understand, diagonal means movement. This is talking about shape. I'm not there yet, so let me go back to, okay, this is a vertical. This is a great picture too, this Arnolfini wedding. This is a great picture with lots of vertical lines. And vertical lines, the positioning of the shapes, vertical lines suggest attention. No movement, a static sort of tension, maybe in a minute movement, but not right now. And of course, in the summertime, I hate to admit it, but in the summertime, I guess my favorite kind of line is the horizontal line. And here's a great painting by Gauguin called Nevermore, and that rest or repose is the kind of thing you see in that. This certainly is something that Frank Lloyd Wright used in his design a lot, this prairie home that he was in fact famous for originating, gives you that great horizontal line. Now that's very original, certainly, that he was building houses like that in this country, but the Japanese had been doing it for a long time. Here's an ink drawing showing you quality of line. Let me get out of lines for just a second and talk to you about color. All right, when you talk to me about color, you must talk to me about saturation, hue, and value. And don't just tell me they're there and they're good, all right? Let me go see if I can find some color slides in here for you. There we are. There's color right here, all right? Color has these properties. Hue, which is the name of the color, saturation, which is the intensity or brightness of the color, and value, which is the lightness or the darkness. Good example here, a saturated red. So if I discuss this particular painting, I would want to talk about the saturated red, the high value or the light value of the yellow. See how light that is compared to, say, the red or the blue even, certainly the black, right? So when I talk about these colors and describe them, I want to be, first of all, sure I give you the hue or the name of the color, and then I want you to discuss the saturation. Is it bright, intense, or not? Not very saturated would be certainly a duller color, like maybe the blue over here, not nearly as saturated as, say, the blue over there. And then value would be the lightness or the darkness. So when you tell me about color, tell me about all those things. When you talk about shape, identify the shape. As I said, I'm going to post this. You can go through and look at the shapes. Value is simply the lightness or the darkness. Contrast is an important thing to consider in value. Is there a lot of contrast? You know, extremes, dark black, bright white, that's extreme contrast. That usually suggests drama. And certainly then when you talk about texture, tell me if it's actual or visual. Now, actual would be something like a sculpture, a sidewalk, a real object that you know has texture. Visual is where the artist maybe has given you the idea of texture by, certainly in this particular Rembrandt, giving you these hatching lines. So you get a sense of not necessarily smoothness, but a roughness there, maybe in the hair or something. Then go to principles, and when you talk about principles, they list a lot more than what I have here. This is when you go over here to, and you can't see it on my page because my image isn't big enough. When you look here in the lessons on the class page, these are the principles they suggest. And then you go here and it gives you a little bit of information. Again, not enough in my book. Unity is by far the most important principle. You can take a person that does not know how to draw, paint, or take a photograph, and if there's unity in that image, it will be a good image, okay? How do you achieve unity? Well, the artist knows that you have to either use repetition, And that can be repetition of any of these elements: texture, value, shape, color, line. Lots of red in that Matisse we saw. That gives us a wonderful sense of unity. Let me drag that back over here so you can see it. You have a unified composition because of that wonderful red that's all over, okay? You also have continuation. Continuation is where, for an example, you have a vertical shape or a diagonal going into a vertical, and then this line leads your eye over here, and your eye is drug around here in the composition. So continuation is when there are devices in a composition that make your eye wander through in a particular direction. That's a good way also to get unity, yeah. And then proximity is when you put it all together. When you jumble this all together, then you see it all as one thing. Now, there's not so much proximity in this Matisse piece, and if I remembered what was next, well, these are just talking to you about the color wheel. Again, I'll post this on the in the announcements so you get an idea of all this. Here is some saturated colors. This Degas ballerina, this saturated yellow gives you a great sense of what's going on. And it's a brightness, and this light brightness gives us kind of a happy, joyful feeling. If it were dark, it would be a moody kind of feeling, not nearly as pleasant. This Gauguin, another version of that same picture you just saw, called Death Watches. This is darker. Look at the extreme contrast, the dark of the body and the dark of this Kahuna figure back here with the white. Very dramatic, isn't it? Look how he repeats the shapes, those linear shapes here on the flower blossoms and in the hands, and in these little spirits that he puts all over in the background. These are the kinds of things I want you to talk about. Tell me about emphasis. You know, if you don't know where to look in an image, then you don't know really what you're looking at. So emphasis is also very important. In this case, the emphasis is probably on the girl's face and head. Everything sort of points. That's by placement to her, you see. She's kind of framed. This points to her, the hands point to her, even the flowers point up here, and her hair leads. And so it becomes very interesting by placement. All right, that's how we achieve that. Well, hope I didn't confuse you. I will post these things. Hope they will help you. And I hope this is a little bit enlightening and maybe not so confusing. I'll look very forward to seeing what you give me for this. Thanks.